And now allow a smile to come upon your face. For this hour together, you don't need to go anywhere, do anything, be anybody. For this hour is an invitation to come back to life, to have your mind, your body, and your heart all in the same place at the same time. We're not used to doing that. We're used to being someplace else. And we will be exploring this radical notion that your compulsions can be your guide back into an alive, intimate connection with life as it is right now. So before we open our eyes, I invite you to just feel there's something different. If you have done this, there is something different. Just a few breaths where you tighten the chronic tension that we carry around all day long. And then you slowly let it go. That there's something different inside of you right now. A more relaxed and open way of being with life. And I invite you, as we explore together today, to keep on coming back to at least a long, slow out breath. And if something we are sharing makes you uncomfortable, exaggerate that holding, exaggerate that tightening by tightening your muscles, and then slowly let them go. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So welcome, welcome. I'm so glad we are gathered together. You know, just watching the evening news last night, I was just so happy that there was going to be a group of people that were being gathered together by life. And we were going to be exploring how to come out of the contracted doing mode and back into the being mode. So I'll begin by sharing some things, seeding our conversation. And we sent you out an email that showed you the 3 different ways that you can ask questions, because I would love to have this be a dialogue. It can't be just doesn't have to be just a question. You know, it can be oh, this is what I'm getting, or, you know, this is an experience I had. And the 3 ways are that you can hit the chat button down at the very bottom of the taskbar at the bottom of the screen, and then there'll be a place that you can type something. You can also hit the participants button, and then I will be alerted that somebody wants to ask a question. When you hit the participant button, there will be a screen, a small screen that will come up on your right-hand side. And pretty much in the middle of it is a little golden hand. It's along with some other icons. All you have to do is click on that icon, and I will be alerted that you want to ask a question or share something. You know, maybe something you have done during the week that you've been able to bring this work, you know, into your life. And the third way that you can, you know, engage in this conversation is if you can't physically be here on a day, or if you're just receiving the recordings, just email me your questions or your insights the day before, and then I will bring them into group on that day. So I want to just touch on the title, Healing and Being Healed by Our Compulsions. I mean, if that's not a radical notion, I don't know what is. Wow, being healed by our compulsions. We'll talk in a bit about what is a compulsion and you know, how do we work with it. But I first want to really explore this idea, being healed by our compulsions. So I've been working lately with a image. I love images because to me, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we are learning a new language now, that the language of the aware heart that this planet desperately needs. So the image I've been working with is the most beautiful ocean that you could imagine. And then floating on the top of that ocean is a small bubble. It's an opaque bubble. That's where most people live. That's what I call the bubble of struggle. And most people, especially in developed countries, have created a designer bubble of struggle, and they can make it really nice in that bubble to a certain extent. It won't stay that way. But the important thing about this image is that that bubble of struggle separates you from the ocean of being that you truly are. So I'd love to go big picture because you can get so narrowed down in your life that you don't really see what's been going on. And so there was Andrew Harvey, who was working with some Tibetan lamas, once said, once you really see what's been going on, you'll nearly die laughing. So we'll talk about that later. How can you die laughing with all of the struggles on our planet right now? But if you doubt that humanity lives in a bubble of struggle, just look at the evening news. Look at, what's been happening with Kim Jong-un, but also what's happening with Putin. He is now creating state-of-the-art nuclear weapons, and he, goes in and takes over countries and then says, I'm not doing anything wrong. I mean, it's just amazing. So we have been around for about 1 million years at the very most, this frontal lobe. And it is a brand new toy on the face of this planet. And what we have done is we have crawled into our dualistic minds. I also call it the conditioned mind. And if you had a little door on your forehead, you could open it up and you could see what your mind is doing all day long. It likes this, it doesn't like that. It thinks this is good, that is bad, this is right, that is wrong. My skin color is better than yours. My religion is better than yours. My gender is better than yours. I mean, isn't it amazing? Just right now in Saudi Arabia in June, women are going to be able to drive. I mean, isn't that, when you think about it, that is just amazing. So males have been better than females, and we know better than they know, so we have to control them. It is insanity. So to me, this is an evolutionary shift that we are involved in. And so the other way I describe what I am saying to you about the bubble of struggle is that we come in 3 layers. I mean, my goodness, we come in many layers, but this is a very simplified version. The top layer is the controlling version. If you're really honest with yourself, one of the main movements of your life is trying to control life. Control how much you eat, control your mate and make them better or different, or, control what's happening at work. And in that top layer that is run by this conditioned self that's dualistic, it likes this, it doesn't like that, it thinks this is good, that is bad, that is right, that is wrong, compulsions come in. Because when we were very young, we were here for life. Life danced through us. There was a time there wasn't even a thought in our head. And then slowly and surely, this conditioned mind was built inside of us. And by the time we went to school, we had a self-image. We knew what was good and bad and right and wrong. Oh my goodness. And so here we are, most of us, when we were growing up, had traumatic events. You know, you may even have parents that absolutely loved you, but we all had traumatic events. If you doubt that, just try to remember some of the things that happened at school, or some of the things that happened with your siblings, let alone your parents. For they had left themselves a long time ago. They were living in this top layer of control. And they may have loved us, but they didn't know how to connect with us. So as we grow up and we have these just really strong feelings that move through us, and nobody is there with us, showing us how to give these feelings space, listening to us, so they get stuck inside of us. And so that creates the second layer. The second layer is all of the parts that we have deemed unacceptable inside of us, that we need to not let anybody know. I mean, have you lived the kind of life where you don't want anybody to know how angry you are? You know, have you lived the kind of life where you have this really strong bent to creativity, but it wasn't safe to have that be open and alive when you were young? So you live at war trying to stuff your creativity, but you're in kind of like a tug of war with your creativity. So in that second layer, in having worked with people, you know, tens of thousands of people over the last 30 some odd years, we all have hidden our deep fears. In fact, if you open up that door on your forehead, you will see that most of that conversation in your head is moved by fear. Oh my God, I've got a spot on my shirt today. Do I want to be late to work? Do I want to turn around and go get something else to wear? But then I'll be late. But if I go to work with this spot on my shirt, oh my God, you know, everybody will think I'm a dork, you know. I mean, there is this just such fear. It's one of the most important parts of awakening, to begin to realize how much fear, and I'm not talking about fear, you know, of course we all have that, but I'm talking about these little tiny things of anxiousness that move through us all day long. We are waiting for a call because we've called our best friend yesterday and they haven't called us back. And every time the phone rings, you know, our heart just jumps, and we just, and then it's so disappointed because it's not that person. This is the stuff that runs us all day long. And that second layer, it's got fear, it's got not enoughness, it's got loneliness, it's got anger, it's got exuberance, it's got terror. That was my main experience of life. It's got dread, which really truly was my main experience, because dread is the experience of really being afraid of what is to come, coupled with this feeling that I've done something wrong. And so everybody I have explored with over the years, and I don't care whether you're the CEO of a corporation, a well-known therapist, a mother, a stay-at-home mom or dad, or a developmentally disabled person, or a teenager, or a homeless person, all of us have this sense that we're not enough. So what we do is that we try to keep this stuff stuffed. And we live in this top layer, always trying to manage our experience. Well, as you have discovered, that doesn't always go very well. You know, we are trying to be very polite to a very scary boss, and we try to do our work and get it in on time. And then one day he just comes in and he or she erupts, and you just freeze. And then he leaves and you are just unsettled, and you get into your car and you go to the nearest drive-through, or and buy two of everything, or you go to the grocery store and you get two bottles of scotch, or another whole carton of cigarettes, or maybe you do what I used to do all those years ago before I began to befriend my compulsion. I would go to the grocery store and just stock up my cart, but there would always be something that I would be eating while I was shopping. And then I was too ashamed to go up to the counter and have this partially eaten whatever. So I would hide it on the shelves, try to look like I was grabbing a can of soup. But what I would do is, it's just ridiculous that what we do in this top layer is we try to stay in control. What we're sitting on is all of this energy. Yes, we call them feelings in the second layer, but really they are our bound up joy. They are just frozen pockets of energy. And when those bleed out into the control layer at the top, when we can't control them anymore, then we turn to our compulsions. So, and we can be compulsive about anything. We can be compulsive about over worrying, or we can be compulsive about judging other people so we feel good about ourselves. Of course, there's the standard compulsions of cigarettes and alcohol and food and drugs. But we can be compulsive about being overly busy, that we work 18 hours a day, at work. And it's so sad that a lot of those compulsions, we get kudos for them, and yet we are disconnected. We are ruining our health. We are trying to get to a place that maybe I could become, the lead manager or the vice president. And we totally override ourselves. And then we find ourselves when we go home at night, not being able to stop eating the thing or drinking the thing or smoking the thing, only to get up the next day. So the third layer is who you really are. I am saying the same thing with the image of the bubble of struggle that is floating on an ocean of being. That is your true nature. That is what inside of you will still be there when your body dies. That is your home. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we're exploring in these 4 weeks together. How to come home. So, and then the 3 layers, I'm saying the same thing. Here's the control struggle layer. Here is the layer of all the things that are not acceptable, and yet they're a part of all of us. We all have these parts in the second layer. And then here is this third layer, which actually enfolds the other 2 layers. It is the ocean of being. It is your true nature. And that is what I mean about healing and being healed by our compulsions. That the wonderful thing about compulsions is that they will not be healed through control. So when I first began to get this, I had, gained and lost, oh my God, thousands of pounds. I'm a Taurus, so I could go a month without food. By God, I was going to control this compulsion. And I went many other times. It was called fasting for my health, but it really was trying to control this eater. And of course, the time that I fasted for a whole month, when I started eating again, that was the year that I gained 97 pounds, in a year. Compulsions will not be healed through control. And if you manage to muscle one to the ground, another one will take over. You stop drinking, and then you smoke more, or you have a very rigid diet, and then you find yourself shopping more. It's just amazing. Why is that? Because in my world, compulsions are a finely crafted survival system. What do I mean by that? So, all of life wants to survive. You go to the ocean and there's a sea anemone, in one of the tide pools, and you touch that sea anemone and it will immediately close up. You want to survive. Your body wants to survive. It's always trying to find homeostasis. And so if you get very, very cold, your body will start to shiver. If you get very, very hot, your body will start to sweat. That's happening in the physical realm. In the mental and emotional realm, if something makes it out of its prison of the second layer, some deep feeling that you don't know how to be with, then your compulsion comes to numb it. So this began to make sense to me. This was, granted in my early 20s, that was when I gained 97 pounds in a year, and I was washing it all down with alcohol, and I was taking every drug I could get my hands on. Why? Because I didn't know how to be with my immediate experience. And for all of us, our immediate experience is going to be easy and spacious in one moment and hard and terrifying and contracted in the next. And it wasn't until my late 30s that I began to really contemplate the possibility that the reason why I hadn't been able to get this eater under control, which the alcohol and the drugs had faded away on their own, but my primary compulsion is food. Maybe it wasn't that I was a weak-willed ninny. I'm a Taurus, so you think I should be able to do this. But maybe it's because control doesn't work. What a novel idea. And that began this whole journey back to myself. I began to see that my compulsion, my overeating, oh my God, I would go to the grocery store and buy lots of stuff and just eat and eat and eat. And then I would I would throw it all in a garbage bag and get in my car and go throw it in the dumpster at the closest store. I mean, this was insanity. And when I got the idea, okay, maybe it's just that control doesn't work. I mean, we can see it doesn't work. The statistics now in the United States is over 50% of the people are overweight. And yet this is after decades of all these diets and, all of these, you have to, you can't eat fat. That was a big fad for a while. And then they began to understand that the body needed fat, but they needed, a particular kind of fat. Oh my God, you can't eat salt, or you can't eat sugar, and this is just all insanity. So compulsions are the art of turning away from yourself because you don't know how to be with yourself. The other way that I define them is they are a highly evolved survival system that is used to manage your experience, and in which over time you have little or no control over. So I am here to tell you that you're not a failure for not having been able to control your compulsions. In fact, if you begin to really let in, and this is why this is recorded, so you could listen to this over and over again, that if you begin to really let in that your compulsions are taking care of parts of you, pockets of energy. It may be, deep vulnerability. It may be loneliness. It may be rage. That if you begin to learn, you begin to change your relationship to your compulsion from enemy to ally, from something to control, and your failure if you don't learn how to control that, to something to listen to and connect with. I assure you, your life will change. Your opaque bubble of struggle will begin to start having windows in it. You may have to clean them off with Windex a lot, but you begin to see that bottom layer. You begin to see that there is something so much greater than the bubble of struggle that you have been caught in your whole life. And that is when you begin to become fascinated. Now, I am going to do my best not to give you, these are the 3 steps that you do to begin to see and heal your bubble of struggle so that you can more rest in the ocean of being, which is always here right now. Sometimes I'll have to give you a little, okay, you could do this, but I don't want to give you a lot. I really want you to really understand the core constructs of this language. That if I give you too much at the beginning, all that will happen is your mind will try to do this, because the mind is so geared to trying to get away from what it doesn't like and go to what it does like. And believe you me, you can be lost in that until you get to your deathbed and you say, what was this all about? So we're going to be looking at some really core constructs. And this first one today is the understanding you're not a failure for having or many compulsions. That your compulsions, rather than being something bad or wrong about you, is life going, psst, you, please pay attention. And that is my job, to show you how to pay attention, how to be curious. And that's what we're going to be working about on next week. That the most powerful healing tool that you have is your focused, interested attention. That it can literally transform what has been held so tightly for decades. And of course, in the 3rd week, we'll couple this with the aware heart, because that's really, truly where transformation happens. We're learning the language of the aware heart. That's what we're exploring. We're using compulsions as our guide. But believe you me, you are homesick to live from your heart. Now, remember, your heart is your main brain. I was interviewed for a book a number of years ago where they took 600 of the leading edge studies on how we have three brains. And we have the head brain, we have the heart brain, and we have the gut brain. And so much now is being written about the gut brain. You know, we now know what happens in the gut really affects your head brain. But not a lot yet is really out there about the heart brain. And I want to tell you something that is just, I hope, going to really blow your mind. That every single one of these studies said the heart brain is our main brain. And at the HeartMath Institute, they hooked a bunch of people over time to sensors to their body, their heart, and their brain. And they put them in front of computers that randomly, on its own, the computer chose either horrific pictures or beautiful pictures. And for every single person, the heart always responded first. It's our main brain. Ayurvedic medicine understands that. Ancient medicine understands that. But for a percentage of the people, the heart responded 6 to 8 seconds before the computer had even chosen the pictures. Just let that in. We're only beginning to tap into the amazing power of our heart. And for most of us, this deeply sensitive and sensing instrument, brain, whatever you want to call it, it wasn't safe for it to stay open when we were young. Most of us have huge walls around our hearts. And that's why we live in that top layer of the control. And then over time, we feel more and more despair because control doesn't work and it feeds our compulsions. And, and we think, what is this whole thing about? Well, we're exploring what it's about. And that is using our compulsions as our guide to rediscovering how to live from our aware heart. And let's bring it back full circle to where I began. That to me, we are in a major evolutionary shift. At one time, evolution was happening in atoms. And then at another time, the leading edge of evolution was happening in molecules. And then and molecules are just communities of atoms that have come together. And at one time, the main focus of the evolution was in cells. At one time, we were just one cell organisms. And that was a community of molecules. And then these community of molecules came together, or these community of cells came together into multicell beings. And for the last million years or so, all of this developing of the nervous system from the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and now the frontal lobe, is, we have been caught in the frontal lobe. And so here is this most major shift of evolution. And that is the aware heart of humanity becoming our main guide. If you look at the evening news, you will see how much this is being called for. I don't know if you saw the two young girls. They were, probably about 6 and 8, and they lived in East Damascus where all of the bombing is happening. And they somehow had gotten on social media and they were, recording what they were experiencing. And then one day, there they were again, but the little one had blood all over her face because a bomb had landed by their house. We no longer have the luxury of having the main bent of our life trying to control it. Life is asking us, rather than controlling, to connect. And it's the heart that knows how to connect. It is the heart that has room for everything. And this phenomenal idea, and you that know me, is that my compulsions have healed me. I mean, I have stayed the same weight for years. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I even keep a chocolate bar in my house, a really fine European bittersweet chocolate bar, because no longer is my compulsion the enemy. And if I ever want to eat more than just enjoy a piece of chocolate, I know there's something that needs me. And I may not be able to be with it at that moment. I live a very full life, but I can at least, I can see that there is something that is stirred up inside of me. And I will come back as soon as I can to be with you. So just, if you take nothing out of this conversation today, except you can be healed by your compulsions. You are not the one that is supposed to control them. That just makes them worse, like the game of whack-a-mole. You hit one and then another one comes up. But my job is to show you how to listen and how to see through all that in your mind that just wants to resist what you are experiencing. I think the last thing I'll say, and then we'll open it up for questions, is that it feels initially at the beginning like our compulsions and everything they're trying to take care of, because remember, they're a survival system, is like this big, huge, nasty lion. And what we do is we try to keep it in a cage. Of course, we always have to be alert. We can't relax into life because we always have to be alert about whether this lion is going to get out of the cage. And at the beginning, it can feel like I'm inviting you to get into the cage with the man-eating lion. But there's ways to do this work that make it very, very safe. And when I self-published the book before it was picked up by a publisher, that I put the story, the tortoise and the hare, in that book 3 times. And of course, when they edited the book and published it, they took it out all but 1 time. But the reason why I put it in 3 times is that the hare that runs around, and that's what we do when we live in that top layer, and we're trying to figure out and understand and analyze and control and fix and get rid of, and we're trying to get to what we want and get away from what we don't want. That's like the hare running around. You think the hare is the fastest? Of course it's going to get to the finish line first. But then there's the tortoise, and it just plods along. So we don't force anything here. Any force whatsoever will close your heart. So we'll begin by learning the art of how to pay attention to what is, how to be curious. Ram Dass, was an elder brother for many of us, he wrote Be Here Now. It was the best-selling book in the world, even above the Bible, when it came out in the 60s. And he said, there's a time in this process where it almost looks like you get masochistic, because you say, bring it on. I want to see the bars of my cage. I want to meet what I am afraid of, what I have run away from, what I have turned away from through my compulsions. And so we'll connect this fascination with your heart, because it's the heart that has room for everything. The heart isn't at war with your compulsions. Your heart isn't at war with what your compulsions are trying to take care of. Your heart isn't even at war with whatever you are experiencing. Your heart has room for everything. And then I never quite know how this is going to unfold, but we didn't get to living in questions last time, and I really want to do that this time, because your mind is going to try to do this for a while. You can't help but have that happen. But when you really discover that in that bottom layer, that ocean of being, right outside of the bubble of struggle, there is an intelligence that's always with you. And that when you ask a question without looking for an answer, that intelligence will guide you unfailingly every step of the way. So let us, so if you have any questions, that there's something else we can go on to, but if you have any questions whatsoever, either hit the participants button and then hit the golden hand, or hit the chat button and type out what you want to ask. And let's just pause for a moment as we're waiting to see if anybody wants to respond or share something or ask a question. And again, this is what I call the pause that refreshes. So just allow yourself to just come to that long, slow out breath. They say, you've got to breathe deeply to relieve your stress. Trying to breathe deeply only causes more stress. I've got to breathe deeply. The key is the long, slow out breath. Ah. Ah. And then I want to add something to this that is so radical. If you can, soften your belly. Ah. Ah. And stay with this breath as I respond to the questions. So the first one from Bonnie is, are compulsions and addictions the same? Absolutely. I am just, there's, you can split hairs, well, let me see. Eating is a compulsion because it doesn't have anything to do with your brain, which is not true. But heroin is an addiction because it has something to do with your brain. All of this stuff has stuff to do with your brain. And so I use the word compulsions because it includes everything. Because if I used addictions, then you're going to, well, how can I be addicted to worry, or how can I be addicted to staying overly busy? So that's why I use the word compulsions. Then Bonnie goes on to say, I think my lion in the cage is a master in disguise. I often don't recognize it until it's too late. Oh, so true. But what we will be exploring is something that I call becoming a tightness detective. So, of course, it is a master of disguise. Your mind is terrified of not being in control. And so it has forgotten the trust, the connection, the joy of relaxing into life. So if one compulsion doesn't work, then it'll pick up another one, and that doesn't work, it'll pick up another one. And we'll be exploring, I'm not sure exactly when, about becoming a tightness detective. I want you to shake your hand right now. Just really just get going with the gusto, okay? Just shake it and shake it and shake it and shake it. Now close your eyes and stop shaking and see what you're experiencing. Can you feel the aliveness in your hand? Can you feel the tingles? Can you feel energy moving? Wow. So open your eyes now. And of course, if you notice, it fades away right away. But that place where your energy is dancing through you, as you, that you knew when you were very little, that's your natural state. And all of us, as this second layer got developed, oh, it's not okay to do this, it's not okay to feel this. You know, our parents say, oh, stop being such a crybaby, or oh, only sissies are scared, or don't get angry at me, you know, that, or we're just exuberant. And, you know, both of our parents say, stop that, settle down, you're irritating me. As we began to fill up that second layer with the energy that wasn't okay and that we didn't know how to be with, we became tight. And there was a study done once that somebody told me about. I've never been able to find it, but it just makes sense, is that children, all of them before they went to preschool, were breathing their natural breath, where their whole body was involved with their breath. You know, if you don't know what that is, if you got a dog or a cat, go watch them. It's amazing. There's nothing that holds their breath. Every single one of these children, by the time they went to first grade, were holding their breath. That's how early it starts. So we're going to be exploring what it's like to become a tightness detective. That, you know, this breath that we did at the beginning, where you tighten absolutely everything, and then on the out breath, ah, you're literally beginning to reset your nervous system so you can remember what it's like to relax into life. That is going to help you become more alert to when you get tight again. And all of us have our favorite places in our bodies. It may be your neck. It may be, you know, really tension headaches. It may be, you can't get a breath. You know, you start getting anxious, and what do? We get afraid of the anxiousness. So what do? We tighten down around it. We hold our breath even more. What happens? The anxiousness gets greater. We tighten more, and we are in quicksand at that point. Or it could be an ache in your back, or a fist in your solar plexus, in your stomach area. And so we'll be exploring how to become a tightness detective. Right now, know that this is not the quick fix. But all of our quick fixes are the hare. We're exploring the tortoise. And the tortoise is what gets across the finish line. The tortoise is what brings us back to this field of aliveness and trust and connection with life that we are, that is our true nature. And so what I would invite you to do, Bonnie, is just notice how tight you get. You know, I first noticed it when I was watching Roadrunner cartoons with my children. It was just amazing. We were all snuggled on the couch, and all of a sudden I noticed I was not breathing, you know, and oh my God, my shoulders, and it was just Roadrunner. And that's when I began to start being fascinated with being tight. So we will talk at some time in this journey together. What do you do when you have gotten caught? Because that usually we go into despair or self-hatred or, you know, self-pity or whatever. But there are things you can do when you have gotten caught that doesn't take you into the old way of judging yourself and feeling despair that you'll never get out of this compulsion. But in the meantime, just notice how tight you are, how much you hold your breath. So, Laura, is it possible to work with your compulsion with food while still eating on a food plan? Oh, thank you, Laura. Both of these are really great questions. So, I want to do this. I think you can see my hands. Okay, so this hand is the management hand, and this hand is the engagement hand. So this is what it was like when we were young, that we were engaged with life. There was nothing more important than to just be. And, sometimes that was sadness, sometimes madness, sometimes gladness. Life danced through us. Can you see the management hand is all the way down here? Okay. Now, what happens as we grow up is this happens. And slowly and surely we come to a place where our whole world is management. Our whole world is that top layer, and our compulsions trying to numb us out from all of the heartache of living just in that top layer. The engagement hand is completely disappeared. I mean, it's just amazing. When I start working with somebody individually, it's like I say, just spend 5 minutes, on the porch in the morning and just listen to the sound of the birds. And they come back and say, I did it for 2 seconds and the rest of my mind struggled the whole time. That's how much we have been trained in management, and our engagement is gone. And believe you me, the more that we are in this and it doesn't work and we can't control our compulsions, the more we begin to feel, why live? That's why I tried to kill myself 3 times. Why live? I mean, this is just, life is horrible. Okay. So what we're doing, Laura, here is we're not stopping management. We're not trying to manage management. What we're doing is beginning to add engagement. Okay. And so slowly and surely, this is what happens as you use your compulsions as your guide. Now, the management system doesn't ever fully go away like it was when we were very young. We need the management system. We got to maneuver through life, but it no longer takes us over. So absolutely, yes, it's like a eating plan for food is like if you've broken your leg and you put a cast on it. You don't just say, well, I've got to engage with the pain in my leg, That doesn't work. You actually put a cast on it, but you don't want to keep the cast on that forever because your leg will shrivel up, okay? So that we begin to add engagement. And believe you me, I still am just amazed. I mean, man, I don't know if you've done this, Laura. I'd go to the grocery store and I'd buy all these fruits and vegetables, right? All this good food, and it would rot in the crisper. And then I would throw it away, and I'm just amazed that I eat what I want. I do fill my refrigerator with really healthy food because I like to feel good, and I have protein choices, I have fruit choices, I have veggie choices, and I purely live from a sense of what's appropriate right now. Know that that's where you're heading, but right now we use the management system so it doesn't just ache us over and over again, because you can't do this work then. So is that enough to work with? Great, good. Yeah, doesn't this make sense? Really? And I just think I have to thank life for making me so unbelievably compulsive, for a good portion of my life, and then showing me how to become curious, how to begin to engage, how to begin to listen. So, any other questions or ahas that want to be shared now? And again, we come back. Ah. Ah. So if you have the book, I invite you to read the section on returning to ourselves. And that will give you, not only some of what I've shared today, but other things too. Next week, we'll be exploring the art of curiosity, the art of being interested in what you are experiencing, the art of having your attention and your immediate experience together. Remember, in the beginning, it feels like you're going into the cage with the lion. So we go slow. The slower, the better. But I and so many people I've worked with over the years are living examples is there is a way out of the bubble of struggle. There really is. And as we explored earlier, my God, this planet needs it. It needs more and more people that are living from their aware heart. The aware heart isn't just, mushy. Oh, everything's wonderful. No, the aware heart is inclusive so that you can respond rather than react. Okay, and we'll be talking more about that later on. So if it calls to you, read the chapter on curiosity before next week, or you can read it afterwards to kind of be a place where this language you can turn to a place that refreshes and takes you deeper into what we are exploring on even any given week. Also, I have a blog, and you can get it through my website, maryo'malley.com, and there's just there's dozens and dozens and dozens of blogs, and so this is a really wonderful way. We are learning a language, the language of the intelligent, aware heart. And just like learning any language, you need to, stay with it. You need to gather together with other people that are speaking that language. And that's why I do classes and I have phone groups and, and all of that. But we do need to study it, so to speak. So, you can go there and there's just blogs on everything from Donald Trump to compulsions. And so use that to keep this language close to the surface. I also have a radio show, and you can get that through my website too. And it shows, I think, at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on, Thursdays Eastern time. I think sometime on Saturday also. But I have dozens of previous shows. And this is something also that can help you learn this language. So I would invite you to, and if you have like the books, if you're not interested in reading a book, just open it randomly to any page and see what life has to say to you. So there's 3 different ways: the books, the blog, the radio show, to keep yourself current on this. And so I think the last thing I want to say is to just let this settle. Watch your mind trying to figure out what to do with this. Instead, I invite you to let this settle and give yourself just a couple of minutes a day where you focus, where you take your attention out of what's happening in your head and you bring it to life. Whether you close your eyes and just do this breath that we've explored over and over again, or whether you sit on your porch in the morning and hear the spring birds, oh my God, they're just going crazy, or you go through your yard and you just see all the variations of colors or of shapes of flowers. for just a few minutes every day, pull your attention out of this constant becoming and ground yourself right here. That's an invitation. That's not a have to. The core invitation is to keep on coming back to this breath. And then we will explore more next week. And so again, if you can't be with us next week, you can send ahas, experiences, or questions. You can email them to me, and I will explore them on the next class next Friday. So thank you all. Thank you all. For all the children in the world, I thank you for being willing to explore this journey back to the aware heart. Namaste. Bye. Bye.